Hello and welcome to Qtr Time podcast in partnership with Carbon Jacked. I'm Lucy G.
And I'm Lucy P. And we're here to bring you all the netball goodness you never knew you needed.
We're delighted to say that this series of Qtr Time podcasts is supported by Carbon Jacked, an environmental startup that helps you combat climate change.
They are an awesome company that provide monthly memberships which plant trees, support epic climate projects, and help you to reduce your carbon footprint.
Memberships start from just £2.50 per month, so you can help save the planet for less than a cup of coffee.
Signing up is super easy. Go to carbonjacked.com and enter netballpod for a huge 30% off. The link is in our show notes. Go check it out.
Hello everyone, we are back with a super special bonus episode to discuss the recent golfing tournament in America. It's jokes. Of course, we are obviously discussing the Vitality England Roses Commonwealth Games squad. So exciting.
I know. It's probably the biggest UK netball news in years, I suppose. It's been all leading up to this, and it was amazing to chat with some of the biggest names in netball about it this week. So this episode is a recording of a live Twitter space from the day after the squad announcement, and we were so lucky to be joined by Lisa Alexander, Anna Stembridge, Pamela Cookey, and Camilla Buchanan for this chat. We also feature some listener questions, so a massive thank you to everyone who sent those in.
Yeah, it was an absolute cracker, wasn't it? Thanks so much for tuning in, guys. Hope you enjoy. Here it is. So big welcome, everyone. And thank you so much for joining us on this Twitter space, this kind of live podcast that we're trying to discuss the Vitality England Roses, the Commonwealth Games squad that was announced yesterday. Just a couple of housekeeping bits. This space is being recorded for any netball fans who aren't able to listen. So please do bear in mind later on that if you do jump on the mic, that this is being released as a bonus episode as well, shortly after. So by jumping on, that's just you sort of saying that you're okay with being recorded. If you want to send in some questions or comments, my lovely co-host Lucy P will be monitoring the hashtag. We're going for hashtag England Roses. So do share your thoughts, comments, general musings, unpopular netball opinions. We love them all. And we will try and shout out as many of them as possible. We got so many already on the Instagram story as well, didn't we, Lou? So we'll try and get through loads of them because they're all really great. And as always, the athletes that we're talking about are real people who have real feelings and may also listen to this live or on playback. So please also bear in mind that any comments or thoughts, just to be respectful at all times, which I know you all will anyway, because that's what the netball family does. And don't forget as well, using hashtag, don't just talk to us, feel free to talk to each other. Let's get some debate going. Let's share those unpopular netball opinions and really digest this squad and the TPs that have been announced. So Luce, for anyone who's been living under a rock for the last 24 hours, can you give us a rundown of the 12 athletes that have been named in the squad?
Yeah, absolutely. So starting with the shooters, we've got Helen Housby, Jo Harton, Ellie Cardwell and Sophie Drakeford-Lewis. In the mid-court, Beth Cobden, Jade Clark, Laura Malcolm and Nat Metcalf, who is our captain. Defenders, Stacey Francis-Bayman, Layla Gusgoth, Jiva Mentor and Ebony Osoro-Brown. And the training partners, George Fisher, Imogen Allison, Hannah Joseph and Fumi Fadoju.
Amazing. So for today's space, we're going to start by introducing some super special guests, and then we're going to move on to look at those 12 names. We're going to start with our defenders, move on to the middies, and then take a look at the attackers. And we're also then going to pick the brains of our esteemed panel of speakers, our experts, with a few in-depth questions before we open the floor to questions from listeners. So your listeners, you're more than welcome to come on and speak later on in the session, or you can use the hashtag England Roses and we'll read them out for you. So before we get cracking, what are your overall thoughts, Luce, before we head over to our experts?
Rude that you're not calling me an expert, but I'm over it. That's fine. No, I'm only joking. So this squad is amazing, first of all. I mean, the amount of experience, 925 caps, 21 Commonwealth Games appearances from this group. It is just incredible. And 7 of this team actually won gold 4 years ago on the Gold Coast, compared to only 4 of the Aussies who were in that final who are still competing this year. So it's clear then that we've got experience in spades. There is just so much that can be said for the positives of having that. But is there enough youth? Are we focusing enough on the future with this squad? I would say that, this is possibly quite a predictable lineup. I think a lot of people have have put their thoughts forward, and it was very similar to what we saw, but maybe there is missing that kind of spark and excitement. Both names who I would have expected to potentially be in there as well are training partners, so it's really good to see those guys recognised. But overall, such a great squad. Really excited to see how they go throughout the Commonwealth Games.
Yeah, 100% agree with all of the above. So now that we've had lots of people coming through and all of our guest speakers are here, there we go, Camilla's in as well. Just a big welcome. We've got Pam Cookey with us, Lisa Alexander, Anna Stembridge and Camilla Buchanan. Welcome all. How are you all doing?
Good, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, great. Thanks, guys. Looking forward to this one.
All good. Amazing. How you doing, Lise?
I think I'm on. This is my first one, so hello from Sicily.
You are on.
So jealous of you, Lisa, over in Sicily. I can't believe it.
Yes, I've started my tan, so I'm very happy.
Amazing.
Yeah, not jealous at all. Thanks for that, Lisa. So let's crack straight on. We're going to start off with our defenders. I mean, my immediate thoughts on this, I was a little bit surprised to see the inclusion of Ebony Osoro-Brown because, and please correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think we've seen her play goal defence since the 2019 World Cup. I'm sure someone from Netball Twitter will absolutely correct me if I am wrong. But that essentially means that she's been playing GK for, a number of years now, solely GK. So have we taken 2 specialist goalkeepers? I don't know who wants to hit us off first. Pam, shall I come to you first?
Of course you would, wouldn't you? No, I think this is a really, stick with the defence, but a really strong defensive lineup. I do get that there are 2 specialist goalkeepers, but I think Ebony has a lot of experience which she could bring to this competition. And she has played goal defence, and yes, she hasn't played it much in the past, as you say, those many years. But I think if push came to shove, she potentially could do a job there if needed. But whether we're going to need her to play goal defence with the likes of Stacey Layla, and then you can always throw a Beth in there. I think Commonwealth is very different to a World Cup. You've got less games and more focused games. So it will just be interesting how you manage that squad with those players. It could still be effective.
Yeah, 100%. And I think defensively, I think we do have quite a lot of versatility and quite a lot of combinations there. Lisa, what are your thoughts on the defensive end?
Well, I'd include Jiva in there as well because, I have seen her play goal defence back in the day. But look, seriously, I think Ebony probably has been training with the Queensland Firebirds, primarily in goalkeeper, but I think she would have had some time on goal defence because she'd be keen to get preparation and get her definitely her engine running out there. So I would expect to see her there at some stage during the tournament, just to have that ability to change up. And of course, you've got, well, I think one of the most supreme goal defences in the world at Layla Gusketh. I think her goal defence game is second to none. So whoever she partners with, it's going to be a strong defence. And then, of course, you've got Stacey who can really cover all 3 positions. So it's a very versatile, strong, powerful defence, and they're going to be very hard to beat.
Yeah, 100%. And actually, from the three core areas, middies, attackers, defenders, the defenders, we have 3 out of 4 of them currently playing in Australia as well. So they're coming up against the best players in the world from all different nations across the globe. So there is just oodles and oodles of experience there. I mean, Anna, who do you think is our best defensive combination? Is it going to be Jiva and Layla?
Oh, that's a tricky one. I think ultimately Layla is, I'd actually go as far as say the best defender in the world currently.
Yes.
I think both in terms of a defensive game and her attacking game has just got better and better. And the scary thing about Layla, I actually still think she's getting better season upon season. So good luck to any goal attack that steps up against her. I think all the points that have already been said with respect to the versatility of that defensive unit, Lisa's point and Pam's around the work that would have gone behind the scenes from the likes of Ebbs in terms of ensuring that she's got that fitness to be able to play out a goal defence if she's needed to be there. And you've got great versatility in terms of Stace. But I think, rather than sit on the fence here, I'd probably say Layla at goal defence, Jiva at goalkeeper. But it could be dependent on the matchup against Shooter. I think we saw in Suncourt, Ebony do a great game against Janelle Fowler. So, I think it will be dependent on the matchup. But I think we've got some great options as an England side.
Yeah, 100%. And actually, I think the best keepers I've ever seen come up against Fowler is Ebony and Sam Pullman. So I think that's a really, really good point. But Camilla, coming over to you now, the big thing for me with the defenders, other than Ebony's inclusion, is the exclusion of Fumi Fidoju. I mean, we know she is a training partner, but there were so many devastated netball fans when we saw that she wasn't in the squad. What are your thoughts?
I mean, yeah, everyone wanted a bit of Fumi in there, didn't they? Everyone wants that bit of excitement. We've lost Serena Guthrie. I think Fumi's that next person that's going to give us that excitement in that England squad. However, the kid is 19. We're going to see her in, another 3 or 4 Commonwealth games. So we don't need to worry about that. For me, it was about the timing. And whilst we know that as a youngster, she's going to give us some magic, she's going to win us some ball. But for me, individually, I think that the unit of the experience that we've gone with outweighs that. And for me, when you look at the defenders, like if you look at Jiva, Ebony and Stacey, the season that they've had so far, I mean, Layla, heads and shoulders above in terms of form. But I think for me, the tricky positioning with Jiva and Ebbs this season was about the connections that they had. You had Jiva playing with Jodie Ann Ward. I don't think that connection was, fully cemented. And when you look at the amount of experience that they've had with each other, you've got Ebbs, you've got Jiva, you've got Layla and Stacey, who have played together for years. I think it's almost like, when we talk about the best friend that you see 2 or 3 times a year, you don't necessarily see them that often, but when you come together, it's just magic. Mm. That's how I feel about this group of defenders, that when they come together, them as a unit will outweigh us not having that youngster and that bit of excitement, because I think that them coming together as a 4 will create a lot of magic for this England side that I'm really excited about.
Oh, Camilla, mate, you're giving me goosebumps here. I'm just so excited. But I mean, Fumi, obviously we talk about Fumi so much. Like, she is just so sensational. I think you're absolutely right. She is going to be on our courts for years and years to come. But Lisa, as someone who's with Fumi in the training environment at Pulse, just how special is this kid?
Oh, well, I guess I spoke to Sam about her on the phone and on Zoom quite a bit before I came over, and then I had the pleasure of taking her for one of our first, what we call our individuals session on a Wednesday night, and we had to do some work on the centre pass defence. And I think what struck me about her is she's asking me heaps of questions, and apparently she's really quiet. So, that was an indication to me of someone who is really hell-bent on being the best she can be. And, Fumi will be disappointed she hasn't made the team. And I think that's a good thing, because, she'll work harder to get there. And, I think I sent her a message and said to her, you know, it's a great honour to be a reserve, and just, you know, what you've got to do is just you got to pretend you're in the team, and that's how you'll do the best job you can for the team. And if you happen to have to go in there, then you're ready to go. So she'll be ready to go if something happens, and hopefully it doesn't. But, you know, she, as everyone said, she's going to definitely be there in the future, and I'm very excited for her. She's a great young woman. She's so humble. She's just a delight to coach. And, you know, she gets over that competitive. She's a bit like Julie Coletto for me, who I had in the 215 team, of course, and a beautiful person off the court. But when she goes over that white line, she turns into the most competitive person of all time. So she's going to be enormous for England and the Roses, and she definitely wants to be a part of it in the future.
Yeah, 100%. And, you know, like you say, the reality is, if you are a training partner, if anything does happen, like, that's it, you're in the squad. So, you know, fingers crossed, absolutely, that it does not happen. But I think she is absolutely the right pick for that training partner position over the likes of maybe a Fran Williams, or even a Zara Everett, as fantastic as they both are. But she is just that spark. But, you know, she is incredibly young. She's 19 years old. When is the appropriate time, in your experience, Lisa, to expose someone that young to their first major competition?
Oh, it's a tough one because, as Anna Mays will know, Anna Stembridge, I think it was in Bath that I brought Kim Revillion onto the court against England, which you were coaching, and she was, I think, 19 at the time and hadn't played.
Yeah.
We were playing ANZ and she hadn't played, and everyone was looking at me as if I was mad, but you just knew that she had that special quality. And actually Nat Von Berto at the time, our captain, had just broken her finger in a practice match. So I was forced into bringing Rav into the team, and then she just became a part of our centre court setup with the wonderful Kim Green and Madison Brown and Renee Helen, and at the time Renee Ingles. It was just a magical centre court. You know, I think there is always a player that can do that. However, I think defence is a little bit different. I think in defenders, I agree with Camilla, it's that special understanding of the teamwork in the defence end, that and that group of four, boy, are they going to be, they're just a wall of force, that defence. I would be definitely not wanting to face them, and if I was a goaler.
Yeah, 100%. It is a pretty formidable defensive line.
Yes, the stuff of nightmares, I think, for the other nations, to be honest.
Genuinely.
Remember, Jiva was 18 when she played her first com games.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I think I agree. Yeah, agree with this. It's not necessarily about age. It's about that kind of how much experience and having those tests under your belts as well before you go into such
Jiva had had 3 years internationally, hadn't she, Pam, at that point? And also think about her relationships that she had and friendships that she had with Amanda and Sonia. Like, I think just sociably as well, she was a much more mature athlete than her age, would you say, Pammy? And actually, Pam would have gone to that Com Games in 2002 if it hadn't been injury. So I think that it's a challenging one, and I think for Fumi it's the right decision at this moment in time. But we've got some really good examples of athletes, like Lisa shared with Kim, that have done it and have really flourished. But I do think there's a lot of aspects you have to be mindful of in terms of ensuring that they do come good, as opposed to pushing them a little bit too far too soon.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. And, you know, we saw her name escapes me, Emma Barry, at the Netball World Cup last year. She was 17, I think, when she took to court. So it really is a case-by-case basis, and I suppose knowing what that individual player can and can't withstand at that point in time. But I think having her in that training environment, you know, she's only going to make them better and prepare the team better as well, which I think is really significant. Before we move on, Luce, anything on the hashtag?
No, nothing on the hashtag as of yet. And please do send in if you've got something. But I was just going to mention as well that Fumi was obviously injured for a large portion of this season. So that could have had something to do with the decision as well to, maybe manage her load. And I think it was on the last space, Pam, you mentioned that you'd unfortunately been injured, when you were called up for, I think it was the Commonwealth Games. And, obviously we want to preserve Fumi, ideally in bubble wrap for as long as possible. Maybe there's a consideration there as well.
Yeah. Definitely, agree. And I think it is that making sure that the athlete is right at the right time. And there's so many variables around that. And like I said on the last space, it would be, if this was just too soon for her, one, mentally, but also physically, we wouldn't want to lose her because of, we want to see that spark on the court kind of thing.
Yeah, it's like taking this minor defeat for the long-term win, I suppose.
I was just going to ask Lisa, actually, when you talked about Kim Rav there, because, we're talking about, her first big championships for Fumi, but she's not been tested on in test series yet. So for me, when you were with the Diamonds, would you have ever taken a player that hadn't been involved with test matches straight into a big comp?
No, I wouldn't normally, but Sarah Clow was probably the closest one that didn't have a lot under her belt before we had a World Cup. In 2019. Look, if everything went according to plan, then we would have still had a Shani, Leighton, and a Laura Geitz at 2019, but it doesn't always go to plan, and sometimes. And the problem for Australia is we don't get a lot of time to put those youngsters out on the international test series. That is a major issue for us, whereas England get to do that, and I think have done it extremely well. Jess has done a magnificent job of getting as many of her squad onto the international court, because there's nothing like that pressure of going out, playing for your country in front of your home crowds, the whole, I guess, circus around it all. I want to say that in the nicest way possible, but that's part of it, and athletes need to be used to that. And as you say about Kim Rav, if you look in hindsight, maybe it wasn't the best thing for her and her career, because we had obviously the time when she dipped in form. She had struggles with her game with when she moved to Collingwood. So there are all sorts of other issues that come up with athletes that can impact on their performance and the consistency of their performance. So I know that Rav would desperately love to be in Birmingham and have made the squad, but for whatever reason she's been overlooked. And, I don't know why that is. I've already said, and I've put this in the paper in Australia, that I think her experience is at these events. You just can't buy that experience. So it's an interesting issue.
Yeah, definitely. And I do wonder if, for those who hadn't been injured for the was it the Roses Reunited series, would this be a different story? Who knows? But talking of mid-quarters, that's a lovely little segue for us to move over to the centre court. We're going to look at our middies. Pam, I'm going to throw to you. Who do you think is our starting centre? Obviously now there's no Serena Kirsten, should I say. Who's our starting centre?
Yeah, good question. That's a tricky one, and I'm glad I'm not in Jessie's shoes. I would say, based on past internationals, Jade has been that formidable impact player. When shit goes cray, excuse my language, they've brought her on and she's done something, that magic, that spark, whatnot, controlled the group, got that calmness back into it and just done a job for us. So if that was the case to follow, then you'd start a Laura Malcolm. I think though for me her best position is wing defence, and then I think them two will interchange, and I don't think that's a bad thing in terms of mixing up what the opposition see and what the opposition feel.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, because I'm a little bit torn as to whether I view Jade as an impact player or whether I view her as my starting centre, because she does just have that really calm, soothing, controlling kind of vibe, aura on court, and that rubs off on everyone else. But then she does have that ability to just come on, change the game, change the dynamic and the tempo. So it's almost like how do we balance that? Anna, what are your thoughts in the midcourt? One thing we notice is that it's quite, I don't want to say an old midcourt, that sounds a bit mean, but there's lacking a little bit of youth in the midcourt. I think the youngest player in there is 29. Both Laura and Beth are both 29. Jade's obviously 38 and Nat Metcalf is 32. And we actually had a question from Kelly Gray and Simone Prandle on Instagram about this. Do you think that we've got that, well, I say balance of youth and experience? Is there a balance of youth and experience in the midcourt, Anna?
I suppose I'd pose the question back to you guys and say, do you want a team that want to win, though? Because I think you've got the best inform for middies there. You look at Laura Malcolm, I think she's probably had the best season I've ever seen from her.
Yeah.
I agree with Pam in terms of Jade. What she brings is just unquestionable. She's probably one of the best athletes I have ever worked with, and she consistently delivers. And then in Beth Cobden, you know, she showed promise as a young England under-17 player. And I think she's...
Oh, I think we lost you there, Anna. You with us?
Sorry, adding
sorry, there we are.
Nat, who I think she is our outright wing attack. I just think you've got a winning midcourt, not an aging midcourt. I think you've got an extremely well-experienced, a real wealth of knowledge and know what it takes to win. You think about the fact that you've got two that went to the World Cup in 2019 and three of them that played not just in the Commonwealth Games in 2018, they played in the final. They won a gold. They know what it takes. And I also, you know, I look at the January Test Series. The first game we played against Australia, the last quarter, Laura Malcolm and Sophie Dial got put on, and they attacked the game. There was no fear in them. And they showed us what they could bring at that level, in that type of intensity, under that pressure. And I just think that's hugely exciting.
Yeah, I would completely agree. Luce, what do you think?
Yeah, I love that, Anna, from you. Strong words there. It was, really, really great to hear that. And I do agree with you. I think this is such a experienced and versatile midcourt as well. And it doesn't necessarily matter that there isn't that youth, because like Lisa mentioned, we do get those experiences, you know, in test series, etc., to expose those kind of younger players. And I suppose there is an advantage of being, you know, one of the most experienced teams in the competition, especially in those high pressure moments, like you mentioned, winning gold. Sorry, Lisa. We did have to drop that one in there, and just having those experience in the pressure moments and being able to exploit the midcourt in other areas, in other nations, which we know could be a potential slightly weaker area. We know Jamaica, for example, their bookends are fantastic, but their strength in the midcourt can sometimes be lacking. So if our strength is in the midcourt, in that real experience, it could be a way to exploit them.
Yeah, 100%. And I think one of the other questions that's popped up a lot since the announcement yesterday, particularly around the training partner positions, is the omission of Chelsea Pittman. And we know that she, again, is a really seasoned campaigner. She's an absolute weapon, even though she's, you know, only got a training partner contract at Fever. When she has taken to court, she has been absolutely exceptional. And I think actually we've got something on the hashtag about this, Liz, don't we?
Yeah, we've got a couple of things on the hashtag. So firstly, a question, do you think we'll see Cobden play centre much? That's from Amy. Thanks, Amy, for sending that in. And secondly, Gary saying, interesting read Jade being an impact player. Let's not forget she's consistently playing 60 minutes for Rhinos. I actually can't think of a time when she hasn't been on court all season for Rhinos, to be fair.
Yeah, it's insane.
So, yeah, she's definitely a 60-minute centre. What do we think? Beth Cobden in centre?
She is a lovely centre. She gives you just something different. But I agree with Pam. I think predominantly it will be Laura and Jade.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And to be honest, I'm not surprised that Chelsea didn't get a training partner position, because even though she has killed it on court, I don't think you can deny that you have to be playing top flight netball week in, week out, and doing that regularly to be able to contend for one of very few spots in one of the best teams in the world. I don't know, do you guys agree? Like, Lisa, do you think she should have been in the squad or a training partner position?
My view is no. I agree with the selection that she did not get in, because really she's a one position player, and you just can't afford, unless she is the number one person in that position, then it's very, very difficult to justify carrying her in a team of 12. That's why I've argued for a team of 13 at World tournaments, because the mid-court really get it in the neck. There's 4 of them to cover 3 positions. So it's something I think World Netball needs to think about in the future. However, on Chelsea, I agree that it's that top-level match fitness. You'd have to question whether she's got it. Jade's had it, because she's been running up and down that court all year in Super Netball with the Rhinos, and she's been in everything and been consistent. And Laura Malcolm, I believe, has taken her game to a whole new level. That's what I observed from not seeing her for a while to seeing her up close. She's definitely become a world-class centre now.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. I mean, my favourite position for her is wing defence. I think she's absolutely incredible in wing defence, but she's improved her centre game so much. But I mean, one thing that a lot of people talk about when it comes to Malcolm is obviously she has had a lot of time over the last couple of years in that wing attack position for England. Jess has done a lot of development for her in that position, but we've seen her play minimal, if any, minutes. I'm trying to think now. In wing attack for Thunder this year. In fact, we've actually seen her in goal defence for Thunder. So is there almost a thing as too much versatility? Do you think that's going to strengthen her game or potentially damage it? I'm going to go for anyone. Camilla.
I'm not sure that we need Malks at goal defence, if I'm really honest. I mean, she did a job, right? And that was great domestically. But I think, going back to a couple of questions ago, for me, she's our starting centre. I totally agree with Jade Clark. She's a queen. She is, you have to hail Jade Clark. However, internationally, she has proven that she is also the impact queen, and has stepped up every single time when it's mattered and delivered on what she needs to deliver on. I also think, at some stage we've got to start looking at who that replacement for Serena Guthrie is. And, if we're looking at the next few years, I think Laura Malcolm is that person. I think Jade Clark for this comp is going to be massive for impact. I think the link with Beth Cobden as well is massive. And, you shift Jade in, you then shift Laura Malcolm back into wing defence. You've got a whole other dynamic that is massively strong. I think for me, Malks is, centre wing defence, absolutely. I think we've got, I agree with Lisa, absolutely, on the Chelsea Pittman vibe in terms of just offering that wing attack position. Nat Metcalfe is our starting wing attack. To only offer one position, I think we've got to take someone as the backup that's either dual position, which is what we've seen with Sophie Drakeford-Lewis, or you've got to take a youngster. And so for me, I think I would agree with that decision on SDL coming in, and then you've got Nat Metcalfe in there. So I absolutely think that they've gone with the strongest in terms of youth. Sorry, just to pick up on all the questions because while I can. I'd like to argue that 29 to 32 is still pretty young, if I can say. I'm gonna try and fly that flag. But you've also got to look at who's coming through next, and the list of youngsters in that mid-court just wouldn't be ready, on the international stage. And as Anna mentioned, all 4 of those mid-quarters were on the court for that final whistle of the 2018 gold medal match. So I think, I would agree with all of the above.
Yeah, I mean, sorry, go on, Pam.
No, just to add what you were saying about Laura in wing attack, I think that's helped her centre game.
Brilliant.
Then that's been able to, how she's learnt to feed, how she's that movement, and it's just coming to forefront because she was an out and out wing defence, wasn't she? So, but yeah, I agree with that. I think this is the strongest centre court that we could have, and the experience, like, 32 is not old.
Yes,
they're,
Pam.
but they're still bossing it on court, the fitness side of things. But then we talk about major champs. It's also the mental side of things. And if you've got that strong group across the court that can bring it out day in, day out, because it's back-to-back games, playing different styles of play, you need that experience in there as well. So, this is definitely, I think, the strongest midcourt at the moment.
Pam. I think there's great leadership also across that midcourt. You've got, both Laura and Nat in those sort of leadership positions at Thunder, and also their combination together, the two of them, that, they've worked on all year. There's some big advantages. And, as you said, Beth Cobden's been there and done that. I think it's an extremely strong centre court. And good on Jade. She's flying the flag for us oldies. Well done.
Yeah, I mean, I'm here for the 29 to 32 still being classed as young because I fall in that bracket. So very much here for that. And I say that the only other thing, sorry, Luce, we've got something on the hashtag. Go for it.
Yeah, it's just about a really great comment actually from Faith Florence. Thanks, Faith, for sending this in. She said, Laura Malcolm is at the peak of her powers, which I personally love. Makes her sound like a superhero. She said she can run all day, and like you mentioned, Lisa, great connection with Cardwell and Metcalf. Starts at centre for me, says Faith. So we shall see.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. Peak of her powers.
Yeah, I hope that describes me one day.
I'm doubtful that'll ever describe me, but I'll strive for it. I think another question for the midcourt before we move on to our attackers, and this was a question from Catherine Gao. Apologies if I've mispronounced that, but around that training partner position, or even actually the squad selection, we've seen that Imogen Allison has taken that TP position. Why is Nat Panagari so often overlooked? I mean, we know that Nat is an absolute weapon. Like, she is the engine of the Lightning midcourt. She's got, she can run for days, but she does quite often seem to be overlooked. I mean, particularly under Jess Thirlby's tenure. Obviously, she went to the World Cup in 2019 under Tracy Neville. But why do we think that she's missed out this time and that TP position's been given to Alison? Pam, I'll throw to you.
I think I think Nat Panagari is a formidable player, and I think what she's been doing at Lightning has been awesome. I think on the international stage, it hasn't, whether she's had the opportunity, but it hasn't just really been that your go-to person. And I think at times defenders find her out. She is a little bit shorter. I think she's very strong on her right hand, but that flick of play potentially could be stronger. I think why they would have gone for, say, an Imogen Allison is that development side of things, the future. I think Imogen, her centre court game her centre game has drastically improved this season. Not why she wouldn't be in that squad. I don't think she's quite ready for that in terms of her attacking play, and that those feeds into the circle and that's control of the ball. But that's will come, I believe. And so I think in terms of an Imogen over Nat, that would be that reason why, in terms of the longevity and the potential change up.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I mean, Anna, what are your thoughts? Obviously, you know Imogen Allison very, very well, and you're no doubt thrilled for her to get that TP spot. What do you think she would bring to that squad should she get the call up?
So first of all, I think Pam's point around Nat P, unquestionable and undeniable what she's brought to that Loughborough team, and she maximizes everything she's got. But I agree with the inclusion of Emma. I think in terms of she's only getting better in terms of her centre position being, and particularly a second choice position. She has a brilliant touch on the ball. So with respect to attacking into the attacking third, her feeds, she's got a great quick release. She sees space quite differently to most people. So she'd be a different centre to a JD Clark, for example. And I think what we saw towards the latter part of the season is she started to bring her defensive game from wing defence to centre. Anyone that's played both of those positions, it's very different. So in terms of what you're playing into, how you're getting back into positions. So I think we start to really reap the benefits of her wing defence position and her ability there at the latter parts of the season at centre. But I think in terms of the growth and what we could see in the latter stages of her career, I think could be really quite exciting in terms of that centre bib.
Yeah.
So I think we've got a lot to come from Imo.
Yeah, sorry, Pam, are you going to say something then?
No, just totally agreeing with that.
I was just going to add that, again, absolute hands up to Nat, who's just an absolute engine. Her work rate is beyond ridiculous. I think everyone knows what you're going to get with Nat. I think the issue for me on the international stage is you also know what you're going to get with a Jade Clark and with a Laura Malcolm. The work rate is equally as high, but they bring something just a little bit extra. And then when you're looking at who else you're bringing in as your fourth person or your training partner person, you want someone that's going to bring you a bit of magic. And I think that Imo Allison is that person. And that's of no disrespect in that whatsoever. She is an absolute workhorse and somebody that you want on your, in the trenches with you. For me, certainly from a test match point of view, she's someone that could, be getting more experience there. But when you're looking at a world championships, you want someone that's going to bring you a bit of magic.
Yeah, completely agree. And I think, Anna, you're absolutely right. I think she has the potential to be, I don't like saying, the next Serena Guthrie or the next whoever, because they're all incredible athletes in their own right. But she does, I think, have the potential to be almost like similar to Fadoju, to have that spark to really ignite the court. And to bring something a little bit special. So no doubt lots to see from her in years to come. Luce, have we got anything on the hashtag?
Yeah, we've got quite a lot coming in on the hashtag. I'm trying to keep up with everything. Funny you mentioned Serena there. Katie Burkett has written in and said, "We don't have a replacement for Serena. She didn't give us a chance to create mini Guthries before she retired." Which I think is funny because I'm imagining like an army of just small versions of Serena Guthrie kind of stacked on top of each other. But that's great. Yeah, I think that we don't necessarily need a replacement because no one will ever replace Serena. I'm sounding like she's passed away. She's fine, everyone. She's fine. But no.
She's creating mini Serenas. That's what she's doing.
Yeah,
she's creating mini
is.
Serenas.
It's in the process, but it's going to take a few years. So,
exactly.
We won't replace her, but I think what we do have is the people who bring their different strengths to it. And bring that kind of versatility and a different edge to the game. Some other comments have come in. Eve, hi Eve. She said, super interesting, read the fact that we maybe view impact player as a bad thing, as if it's an insult for Jade. Personally, I think coming off the bench and changing a game like Queen Jade does is one of the most impressive things an athlete can do. I agree with you on that. I agree with you that on Eve. Yeah, Lucy, I can see you clicking. Nice. And I'd like to see Beth Cobden. Oh, this is from Mel Robinson. Just putting it out there, I'd like to see Beth Cobden start at centre with Gus Goth, Ebony Asira Brown, and Mentor in defence. That would be spicy, definitely. And Lexi Russell has said, very interesting, appears to be a toss-up between playing across a few positions and being viewed as a jack of all trades, master of none, but then not being versatile enough if you specialise in one position. I think it's really difficult, isn't it? You've got to have a mix and a balance across all the 12 and not have too many specialists and make sure you've got all the positions covered. But yeah, lots of comments coming in, guys, so please keep them coming, and apologies if we don't get to all of them. I will be going through trying to get to them all before we finish.
Definitely. Hashtag England Roses. Do keep them coming. So I think probably time to move on to our attacking third. And the notable omission from this area of the court is George Fisher, who has got the training partner spot pipped to the post by Sophie Drakeford-Lewis. I mean, generally speaking, what are your thoughts on this squad selection, having SDL in the squad and George as training partner? Anna, obviously I'll come to you first, having known SDL for a very long time.
I think you hit the nail on the head earlier, Lisa, around if you're going to be a specialist in one position, you've got to be the number one. I think, unfortunately, it's undeniable how good George is, but you've also got the likes of Joe, Helen, and Al. So I think it's a real tough one in that respect. And while we moved from the mid court, but ultimately having Serena in that group has meant then other people like Law or Malcolm are going to have to play in that middle position. Previously, he's been playing more of the wing attack. So then you do need someone that can swing across and play wing attack if you either want to change something that with Nat, or Nat needs to be given a bit of a rest, in terms of managing that tournament load. So I think it's a real tough one. I'm sure George will be absolutely devastated. And I think it's really hard when she has been performing really well in ANZ. But I do think it's the right decision based on the positional cover and the need to ensure that they can slide people across on that wing attack, so forth, for something different to Nat. And ultimately, you've got Joe, Helen, and Al. And Al has been absolutely sensational in Super League this year. You can't question her selection in this Roses squad. So it's a real tough one for George Fisher. I do really feel for her, but I do think it's the right combination in terms of those 4 goalers.
And this might be slightly controversial now. Do you think that George is potentially a victim of our lack of depth and strength in that wing attack position?
Is that a question to me? Sorry, just
well, yeah, or to anyone. Do you think that's why, like, she's fallen victim because we don't, as a country, don't have enough depth in that position?
Well, you do have someone that can play that position in Soph. Well, ultimately, she's played predominantly a goal attack. She is a goal attack, wing attack, and she has internationally. I call upon that January Test series, that first game against Australia last quarter. Her and Mout came on and did exactly what was needed. They took on defenders. They had great depth. They were giving driving ball. They were putting the ball in early, catching the defence's bloody momentum off balance. So we do have someone in Sophie that can offer us a different wing attack. And Laura could go there. And I think, like I said earlier, because of the loss of Serena, that has meant we've got to look at Laura in a different position potentially from what Jess maybe had been preparing over the last couple of seasons, with Law kind of playing that wing attack, wing defence position predominantly. But it is a tough one for George. It is a tough one, though.
Yeah, I was going to say, as a previous international coach of Australia, this is the dilemma every time you pick a 12 for your country. Are you picking the 12 best, or are you picking the 12 that will combine together and give you the best flexibility, the best strength to counter an opposition? It is a continuous, chess game for you. And unfortunately, at this particular stage, I think, it's been a very tough decision. I probably had George Fisher ahead of Sophie just slightly in terms of the goaling position. But I certainly have said this to athletes a number of times. The best way for you to ensure you get yourself into a team is to be the number 1, not the number 4. And therefore also having an alternate position as well gives you more, I call it selectability. So when I'm advising young athletes about that, I do talk about those sorts of things, and it is an important factor. And it's unfortunate that, athletes don't always get to show all the ability of their different positions in matches, because coaches have to put them in certain positions, and then some coaches don't do it, or they do it. So it's it is variable. It is totally a hard, harsh decision against George for certain, because she brings so much intelligence and understanding of the New Zealand defence. A tough decision, but I think it's the right decision in the end for England.
Yeah, I probably would agree. I've been so torn about this for so long, and there's been so much chat on netball Twitter about this. Luce, I imagine there's something on the hashtag about this.
Yeah, there's quite a few on here actually. So Katie Burkett has gone in touch and said, breaks my heart, but when Harton retires in X amount of years, I think Fisher has dibs. We have so many good shooters. It's a bad time to come through. And I suppose what an amazing position to be in when you think about it from that perspective. Amy Foster has said, Fisher will get her time. I feel sad for her, but she's still young, and we have Harton, and Cardwell has had her best season yet. Fisher needs more test play and she'll get her time. Megan has agreed with what has been discussed about the versatility aspect. George has been pipped due to her lack of versatility. Absolutely nothing else. She's had an outstanding season at Steel. I agree with that. And I think this is from Sean, I think we can only afford to have so many specialist positional players, and that's why people like George have a hard time being selected, as we need flexibility in a tournament with many matches being played against a multitude of styles.
Yeah, and I think it's really tough because I don't think either George or Sophie Drakeford-Lewis have had as much international exposure as we would have liked to see from both of them. I think particularly SDL, like we know she's a gun in wing attack in the domestic competition, even though she hasn't played there an awful lot, but we know that she does it beautifully. But there was so much time invested in developing Malcolm's wing attack game internationally that Sophie and even Hannah Joseph, didn't get as much or any court time in some cases, I think, as we would have liked to have seen. So I really hope that this will be the making of SDL in this competition, having made the squad, because she absolutely has the potential, and now this is her time to shine. But I think the other thing, which you mentioned there, Luce, is that we do have so much talent in our shooting end. It's just ridiculous. And Cardwell is just sensational for me. And she mopped up every single award possible in both club and the league. A question for Camilla, I'm going to come to you. Do you think Cardwell has sort of put her hand up enough to be in the starting 7, or do you think that Halsby Harton is going to be our go-to sort of goal shooter, goal attack combo?
Oh, now you're asking. I think she's done enough to get a start, but in which game is the question. and I think that's the thing. I mean, you can't deny the H2 combination of Helen and Joe. I mean, they've proved year after year, competition after competition, that they are an absolute fire combination. Ellie, domestically, we know has consistently put out world-class performances. I guess for me, it's going to be about how she then connects with a Joe Harton if she is out at goal attack, or if she is in the back, how she then connects with Helen. Because we have seen over the last few years, at times, it not clicking. Like Helen, a couple of seasons ago, she was taking a minute to get into games, and we did need something else in that goal attack position. But I do think that Helen's in a different space right now. And so I think it's going to be how over these next few weeks in South Africa, over these couple of pre-com games, matches, what those connections look like and how quickly she can build a good connection with Joe and with Helen. You can't beat H2, but I think Ellie is absolutely knocking on the door. She'll get a start, like I said, but it just depends in which game.
Yeah, I mean, as I said on the pod a few weeks ago, I actually think I would have her as my starting goal shooter. Maybe not gold medal match, I don't know, but certainly in the semis or bronze medal match. Not that we're going to be playing for bronze. Let me put that out there right now. Not manifesting that. But yeah, I mean, Lisa, interested to hear your thoughts. Obviously, you came up against the Hart and Houseby combo in the 2018 Com Games. Do you think that's our strongest shooting combination?
Oh yeah, look, it is the combination. It's the one that is a winning combination at international level. Whether it is right now is always interesting because both players come from the two different Sydney clubs. They do prepare and take a little while to combine together, I think, always. And that's one of the things that we would always try and do, is disrupt that combination as early as we possibly could and keep them apart. It's not always easy to do, of course, but those two, and particularly because you can swing them, It was something that I used to do a lot when I was coaching Melbourne Phoenix in the early 2000s with Eloise Southby and Sherelle McMahon. It just gave us a really good kicker to be able to do that swing, because Eloise was such a smart player, and I, liken Harton to that. She can come out and just take the game by the scruff of the neck and change things. But the thing is, Ali Cardwell can do that now as well. So, it's going to be really interesting. That's actually going to be one of the hardest things for Jess to manage, is how she combines that wonderfully creative and exciting goaling end that England have, particularly with Sophie as well. It's very, very flexible. It's going to be very interesting how she goes about it.
Yeah, 100%. And I actually think they all offer something very different as well. Like an SDL offers you something completely different to a Cardwell in the shooting circle. So, and then, again, for a Harton and a Houseby, and we've got three, actually Sophie Drayford Lewis is a really good long range shooter as well. We've got 4 shooters who can shoot from range as well, which is an absolute killer. It's really threatening. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. Sorry, Pam.
No, just say, I think that's what's so positive about this group. Like, not only are they formidable players in their own right, and not just athletes but shooters as well, that versatility in terms of style of play, especially in a competition, I know I keep going back to it, where you're playing such different styles so close together, to be able to mix it up at the quarters or even games, but then also be able to like make partnerships really gel together. And I think even if you put them together, whether it's a Helen and a Soph, or it's a Jo and an Ellie, or it's the H2, which I definitely believe that's our strongest combination internationally. And Ellie has been flying this season, and she's been so strong, and I've just loved watching her play. I just want to see her now, what she's like up against those internationals consistently, and then we can kind of judge that, whether she is over a Jo. At the moment, I think Jo's winning that one hands down. But also the fact that you could put them on in different games gives them rest. Like, it gives that chance to kind of regroup yourself, and then when you are up against the big guns, you've got your full firepower going.
Yeah.
I just, sorry, can I just add?
Yeah,
one thing for me about Els, and everyone's talking about her in that goal shooter position. I mean, she is a goal attack as well. We all know that, but for me, if you're going up against the Kiwi style, or if you're going up against the Aussie style, which we know typically is a more of a man on game and running you hard, although they've expanded their defensive repertoire over the last kind of couple of years, but to put an Els in there who doesn't necessarily run, she'll stop and prop. And she's so strong and so difficult to break down on a one-on-one, that I think that could put a real spanner in the works, having her out at goal attack, and then combining her flair with a Jo Hart. And I think I see that connection being really troublesome for an Aussie style defence. For a Kiwi style, potentially you need a Helen in there to cut up their off marking situation. But again, it's a jigsaw piece that is it's a headache. But Lisa, I'm sure you would agree that it's part of the fun part of the coaching side of things.
I don't know whether it's fun sometimes, Camilla, because I actually think this can be actually one of the defining parts of this Com Games, is getting this right, because as you know, the goal shooters are very, very special people, and getting those combinations right and getting their confidence right together as a combination, and Pam will agree with me, I know, is it's a fine balance, and they also need time together to develop that combination of that uncanny ability to pass the ball to each other, the shooter to shooter moves particularly. And I've seen Australia in the past really muck this up. I know, I've observed it, where the combinations have been just too disruptive through a tournament, and then they just don't settle. So I think it's really important that Jess gets on and settles which is going to be her go-to. and have her change ups, of course, but it is important to settle that combination.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Totally agree. Yeah. Sorry,
go on, Pam.
No, I was just saying in terms of that is as a shooter, like know early who your two starters are, and then the other two know that they're impact players or what exactly their role is. Whether it is like Camilla was saying, Ellie will start a game. I don't know which one it is yet, but go to when you're up against New Zealand. Is it Joe and Helen? And then work on that. But then in the background, I think Jess will definitely be working on all the different combinations, trying to get them all gelled to know how to play with each other. But you need to be specific as a shooter, because if you go into a game confused who you're going to play with, where you're going to start, then it does play a massive effect on the whole combination in the end.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. I kind of wrote down, like, be clear around the role, be clear around in terms of investment, because they're bringing this group back together and some of them are going to come late into it. So Lisa's point around ensuring those connections form quickly. And then your point, Pammy, around the knowing your role, knowing the impact that you can have, but also Jess will have gathered information in those matchups from previous test matches. So Camilla's point around, maybe an owl might match up quite well against Australia because of the difference of her, the way she plays, the use of her body to protect space and hold up to change the timing. I just think those matchups are going to be so exciting, but I do definitely concur around investment, connection, and then impact.
Yeah, 100%.
Professor Stembridge has done it again.
So eloquently put, I love it. But as a shooter myself, I'm going to take Lisa's words. I'm going to put that on my tombstone. Shooters are special people. Yes, we are.
Yes, we are.
I was being nice then. I could have said a few different things.
Just hold it there, Lisa. Just hold it there. You were fine the first time.
But I've got to be. Pamela and I are mates when com games are going on, so we need to be friends.
Yeah, 100%. Luce, before we could literally talk about different shooting combinations for days, couldn't we? But before we move on, is there anything on the hashtag?
Yeah, there's a couple of bits that have come in. So Sean has said, seeing Harton play against Magpies at the weekend was the demonstration of a goal shooter directing attack end like no other. Simply has to start in big games.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. She's a magician. That's what she is. She's a magician.
Yeah.
Literally.
And also when she gets her game face on, you wouldn't even want to be within 5 miles of her. It's just absolutely terrifying. A couple of other things that have come in. Megan has sent in her full starting 7 that she would suggest. Harton, Houseby, Metcalf, Malcolm, Cobden, Gusgoth, Mentor, which is quite hard to say quickly, actually. But that's a very, very frightening lineup, I have to say. And I think that would be my 7 probably as well. Mm-hmm. And finally, on the hashtag, Amy Foster has said, I could listen to Camilla Buchanan talk netball all night. Love how she talks about the game and her insight. So many netty legends on this space. Even missing Love Island for this.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
Thanks,
that's
Amy.
high praise indeed.
Thanks for tuning in. Amazing.
Oh, incredible. Camilla, I know that you might be a little bit tight for time, so I'm going to come to you next. But we've spoken a lot about the different styles that all the different nations have. The man on style of Australia. Sidebar, I think a Cardwell on Bruce matchup is the present that the netball family deserves, but we'll gloss over that. But yeah, we've got that sort of a tight man on man defence, or a woman on woman defence, from Australia. We've got that sort of zone marking from Australia, from New Zealand. But something that I think often gets overlooked is the psychological pressure of having to back up performances, but also back up our 2018 performance. And that's kind of a really overwhelming takeaway for me for this upcoming Com Games, is having to back up the performance, prove it's not a fluke, and I think the athletes knowing what positive impact it would have on the country in terms of increased numbers of participation, the impact that netball can have on people's lives. How important is all of that off-court stuff, the kind of mindfulness, positive thinking, sports psychology? How important is all of that for these games in particular, Camilla?
It's huge, and no doubt everyone will have been working with a sports psych at some point, and looking at building that side of their personality. But one thing as well that you got to think about from a coach's point of view when you're selecting players is you're not just selecting them on their physical. You're not just selecting them on what they can put out on court. You're selecting them on their character. You're selecting winners. And when you look at the list, and we've already mentioned it, we're looking at 7 out of this 12 were in that winning 2018 squad. The 7 that there were the 7 on for that final whistle that took that gold medal. So, and then when you break it down even further, when you look at individuals like a Nat Metcalf, somebody tweeted on the day of the Super League final, her record, Super League win, Super League win, yeah, and then Suncorp win, Suncorp. I mean, she's a winner. Helen Housby, well, we don't even need to talk about her in terms of winner. Joe Hart and Jiva Mentor, 6th Commonwealth Games. I mean, you've got a squad of winners here. So whilst that is a massive piece off the court, there will be a huge part of their selection as to why they're in this group. And yes, the pressure of it being a home com games is massive. The pressure of retaining the gold medal is massive. But this is what we've been waiting for, right? As a nation, we've been waiting for this position to be in the driving seat and to maintain. We want to prove that it's not a fluke. We want to prove that we are champions for a reason. And that is the group that's been selected to do that job. So whilst it is a massive piece off the court, there will be work that's done, on the visualization and all of those things. This is a very special group, and I've got no doubt that they'll be able to do the business, and that's not taken away from a hurt Australian side who we did it on their turf last time, so they want to come back and repay the favour. I'm absolutely sure. You've got New Zealand who are still getting that group together. You've got Jamaica who are in form. Like, it's not going to be an easy task for anybody, but yeah, it's huge. The mental capacity side of it is huge, and that is a big part that goes into the selection of these players.
Yeah, without a doubt. And Anna, obviously you've got a lot of experience in this area as an ex-England coach. Do you think, like Camilla mentioned, this kind of turning of the tables, we stole the gold from Aussies on home soil in 2018. They now have the opportunity to do exactly the same thing to us. Do you think this is going to be something that weighs heavily on the athletes?
I don't think it's going to weigh heavy on the athletes. I actually think it's going to be a real lift having a home games and being able to play in front of our friends and our family and have that support. Like, it's documented, it's research. Having the home games, playing at home, having that crowd behind you is a lift. Like, it adds to the, we talk about the 8th player. It's an advantage. There's no getting away from it. It's an advantage, and that's how you have to see it, as an opportunity. When you talk around sports psychology, it's around framing things. So seeing this as an opportunity, I think actually we've got the edge. We've got the edge. We hold the championship at the minute. Come get it off us, because it ain't going. And I think it's definitely a lift for us having a home games and being the reigning champions currently.
Yeah, 100%. I completely agree. And Lisa, coming to you, we all know that, well, I strongly believe that 2018 wasn't a fluke, and we've proven that we can beat top nations time and time again. But I do think that there'll be greater expectation on the England Roses to win again, to kind of prove that it isn't a fluke. So from a coaching perspective, how do you overcome that?
Oh, well, it's exactly as Anna said. It's how you frame it. It's how you position the whole campaign. It's an extraordinarily important part of being an international coach now, is how you create the psychological environment for the players to really excel and let them get on with their business. And I'm certain that Jess will do that. I think, you can see that in what she's already tried to create. And, she'll turn it around, that it's not actually pressure, it's actually great lift and great excitement about being able to perform at their very, very best in front of a home crowd. There's nothing like it. For us, I think we're affected by the pressure at the Gold Coast, definitely. Particularly having to move venues for the final, that was very, very tough on us. And we had our finals times affected as well, which, no excuses. You guys won, and you won fairly, and you deserve the win because you played better than Australia on that day. But, it does come down to the inches that are going to make the difference, and who is going to be the player that's going to be courageous and put that shot in at the end, like we know that Helen Housby can do. Who is going to step up? And I think the team that's been developed and put together for England has got the very, very best chance to do that. They have to combine well. They're going to have to bring that energy into every single game. It's not going to be easy. They're going to have to manage distractions, because it's massive in a multi-sport event. It's not just a World Cup, it's lots of other sports, and it's tough. So managing that energy is going to be the biggest challenge. And obviously the psychological preparation for every single game is massive. I can tell you Ali Cardwell will most likely definitely prepare differently to Sophie Drakeford-Lewis. You can tell by watching them and observing them as athletes, and that's what you have to be able to manage in a team environment, the individuals coming together as a team and putting team first. And I think England can do that, and I think they want to show that it wasn't a fluke. I think they're very determined to do that.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think of any England team potentially that we've ever had, we've got more strength and depth and versatility than possibly ever before. So I think if there's any England team who can back up that 2018 performance, it is this one. And I think it's really interesting when you mentioned the word distractions there. Pam, you did a talk recently with the Women's Sport Collective on your experiences at Commonwealth Games, which I absolutely loved. With all the other stuff that's going on, with it being a multi-sport games, you got the general Commonwealth Games environment, you've got the athletes' village, there's so much excitement going around. Do you think that will act as a distraction, or do you think that will bring our Roses sort of strength and inspiration going into the tournament?
It's so much fun. Like the fact that you are part of the Team England, and it's not just netball. So you've got all these other sports that are cheering you on, and you can support them, and everyone's just vying to be the top of their respective sport. That gives you just another massive lift. And I think, like we talked about, there's 7 that have been to the Commonwealth Games before, so they know what it's like to be in that environment. They know what it's like to feel eyes on them, and but it's also even the newbies. So I remember like my first one in Melbourne, and like getting into the athletes village, and it's being so vast, and then the 24-hour food hall, and you're like, I want to eat everything because it all looks so good, and I want to go and meet everyone and take pictures with them, but then you still want to kind of be cool and like, I'm here for a reason too, Usain Bolt, so it's not just you. Like there is all that going, but then you know why you're there. Like, this is what you've worked on for however many years. You finally got selected, and the hard part is still to come. So I don't think that being part of like the multi-sport event would be a distraction to these girls. I think they will use it to help them, push them even further forward. And like Anna was saying, like that 8th player, like you're on home soil now. The majority of the crowd are willing you on, like even down to like what's the word, like coordination at the event. Like I know Lisa mentioned there was a couple of problems in Australia, but like who's going to get the bus timetable that they want? It's probably going to be England first before another team. So little things like that, potentially the volunteers are all English, they're going to be wanting to support you. Yes, they'll also look after the other countries as well, but you're most likely going to come first. So it's taking advantage of those kind of points, and a home games, like everyone's on your side, and you just grow from that kind of energy, and I think it just pushes you further.
Yeah, and I think we absolutely saw that with the home World Cup in Liverpool in 2019. Like the environment, the atmosphere, like it was just electric, and having everyone there cheering on the Roses was just sensational. And I think it's really interesting. It's kind of all those little things that you don't really think about. Like the bus timetables. That would never cross my mind. I find that so interesting. All these little things that add up and impact. Luke,
I can tell you it's massive. All of those things are massive. They all
100%.
prevent. They all provide obstacles that teams have to get through. Like you have to turn up to games 2 hours before the game when most people are used to turning up 1 hour before games. There's all those different routines that are expected of comm games, and sharing a room, athletes sharing rooms. So that means their sleep is affected because they have to do that. So there's many issues that have to be gotten over and discussed and got through.
And to add to what Lisa said, I 100% know Jess in terms of her attention to detail. So all those things and there were only a couple of things that Lisa's listed there as loads. Like you would have tried to simulate that. You would have gone through scheduling, like all the things that you would have practiced. You talked around even the rooms in terms of the makeup of the group, in terms of in the apartments. Jess, knowing her attention to detail, she'll be all over that. But the biggest thing that people can do, so 7 out of 12 of those athletes have been to Commonwealth Games or a major championship, is share stories. So Pam's, you can even tell in her voice still that excitement, the emotions that it evokes. And it's a bit like you want people that, for their first experience, like they should enjoy it. But then also those that are going the 6th time, they still should enjoy it. So it's a bit like a kid in a sweet shop, you want to try a little bit, but you don't want to eat that much that you feel end up being sick. So you try and enjoy that occasion, get that balance. But for me, I've got no question. I bet they're all sharing stories in terms of, some of the happiest memories, some of the things they did well, some of the things that make them cringe now. I think around Helen Halsby, in 2014 at Glasgow, some of the, she was so excited. It was wonderful. And sometimes when you've been to multiple events, multiple games, you forget that. You forget how exciting, how special that occasion is. And I think sharing stories, sharing that little insight with each other is just so invaluable.
Yeah, 100%. And I think you're right. Like when it's spoken about so much between like fans and within England netball, within the athletes themselves, you almost lose like the magnitude of actually how incredible and enormous this event actually is. So I think that's really interesting, and I'm very, very conscious of time. We wanted to try and cap this at about an hour and a half. So I'm going to just move us on slightly, and I want to just take a little look at our sort of primary competitors. So we're probably, if we say the top 5, just for sake of time, and I want to take a little look at how we reckon we might stack up against them. So if we take a look at, let's start off with Jamaica. Obviously, they announced their squad relatively recently. Absolute powerhouses in both shooting and defence, and maybe a little bit of a question around that mid-court. Pam, I'll come to you first. How do you think we're going to stack up against Jamaica?
Oh, like you said, that is a strong squad. And, well, I picked them to do well, not maybe win it, but the World Cup, and they just capitulated with them. They had the players, but weren't able to pull it together then. I think this time round, they're more years under their belt. They've now got Rob Wright that's helping them develop those kind of consistent plays and that technical side from his knowledge to add to that Jamaican flair that they already have. I think that they're, like you say, those bookends are so strong, so dynamic. The centre court is where they have been struggling, but they've got Nicole Dixon-Rochester back in again. I rate her. I think she feeds Janelle really well. And if, again, those combinations can click together, they'll be a real force to reckon with. But I'm still back in England. I still think this squad is this is a really, really strong squad. And I think they will definitely give them a good run for their money and get on top of them.
Yeah, 100%. And Lisa, what are your thoughts of us up against Jamaica?
Yeah, I think this is probably Jamaica's best opportunity with the experience that the players have all received in Super Netball, that they can actually do some real damage in this tournament if a team happens to have an off day against them, and that is quite possible at a tournament. So they will none of the teams will take Jamaica lightly, of course. It's whether they can produce what is necessary to win those matches that they get close in. They have to be able to really execute under pressure and be clinical. They will be better at it. Whether they can do it consistently, I'm not certain. That, obviously we'll need to see. But with Rob right there, their defence will be more organised, and hopefully they will be able to, get themselves up into medal contention. But I think England will beat them because of the consistency and strength across the court.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, we said on the pod a couple of weeks ago that we think this is probably Jamaica's best chance to get a medal. I think purely because of the strength in the bookends, but it'll be really interesting to see. And actually, I keep forgetting that Rob Wright is helping to coach them like that. I keep forgetting that all the time, and I think it'll be interesting to see the impact that he's had on the team for sure. And I think if we move over to South Africa. We've seen, have we seen their squad of 12, Luce? I think we've seen it. I've lost track now. Yeah, I think we have. How do you think we will stack up against them? Camilla, I'm going to come to you.
Yeah, so, I think South Africa are in a really good position. We know from the World Cup that they got really close at times, and threw a real spanner in the works. We know that with Carla not around for the Com Games, it is still a bit of a hole. I know we've kind of talked about that till the cows come home, but it is a bit of a hole for them. Shadeen van der Merwe, I guess, depending on her fitness, because she wasn't able to see out the season over here. So depending on where she's at. So defensively, I think that, potentially they've got some holes there, but Pumza Moeni has just been outstanding this season. Anna, for you, she was just a total standout for me this season. And then, the other end, you've got the likes of Ina Marie Venter, Lenise Pothita, who, I think that's a great combination. Oh my goodness, I haven't got the list in front of me, but oh my goodness, goal attack.
Radaman.
Well, you got
there we go. Radaman. Yeah. She's been fantastic for Dragons this season as well. Again, it's that collective combination. We know that year on year they're growing as a combination, and they gave us some real issues back in 2019. I still think that from our point of view, our attack end is our strongest unit, I think, and I just don't think that South Africa will have enough against us. I'm putting it out there quite early. And then centre court wise, I just think that we've just got that experience over them. So it's not going to be an easy one. It never is against South Africa. And style wise, they always push us all the way to the end. So you always have those teams that, not necessarily on paper should be a great matchup, but style-wise, it just seems to work out as a good spectator game. But I think we'll get over the line. But I mean, it's so early to say.
Yeah, it is, and I don't know. I think I probably agree with you. I don't think that they have the depth, and I think there's been a thing with them for a couple of years now. They don't quite have the depth that. Like an England, for example, have really, really been building over the last 3, 4, 5 years. And I think that's going to be their downfall. Do they have enough to be able to change what's happening on court? It'll be really interesting to see. Obviously, the New Zealand squad hasn't been announced yet, but we have seen the list of 27 trialists that are being assessed, I think, as we speak, actually. I think it's going on at the moment. Anna,
it might be right now, isn't it? Right now.
Quite possibly. Yeah. What's over there? Oh, just imagine Dame Knowles just going about on court while we're chatting away. Yeah, so obviously
She'll definitely listen to it later on. Don't worry.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
Oh, that's a great little credit there. I'm going to put that on our bio. Dame Knowles listens to us. But Anna, what are your thoughts on the 27 trialists who've been listed for New Zealand?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think in terms of trying to select the 12, this one I probably struggled the most with. I appreciate I'm looking at the 27, but losing Berger, I think, is a big loss for them.
Yeah.
You know, unfortunately, she got injured in that last game of ANZ, and I actually think she's been playing outstanding, not only in the domestic league, but internationally. She's, you know, shown her worth, not only at wing defence, at goal defence. I do think that that's a real loss for them. I probably would say that there's sort of, I don't know, 8 definites, and then I think it'll be down to those connections and points of difference. I think in terms of the other 2 teams that we've spoken around, in terms of Jamaica and South Africa, you know, South Africa, you've got 2 very different goal circles that you could mix up, and I think in terms of Jamaica, Pammy hit the nail on the head. It's around feeding Janelle. So actually having Nicole Dixon, which is her back, I think is going to be key. But in terms of New Zealand, for me, you know, post 2019, they had some big retirements. Then, you know, there's a number of athletes that have had children. So again, not having Jane Watson in the squad, I think is a great occasion for her having a child. But in terms of that New Zealand squad, you know, they are missing some key people. However, Karika coming back in terms of playing with Sulu, I think has been great in terms of for Mystics. And I think you've got some combinations potentially that she can lift and put into that Silver Ferns makeup and actually build on those connections rather than starting fresh, if you know what I mean. But it's going to be an interesting one. This is definitely my squad that I found the hardest picking a 12 from, because of, you know, many athletes missing, new ones coming in, who's been playing well, who's been combining in ANZ in those clubs. It's definitely a headache.
Yeah, I found this one the most kind of unpredictable, the most like you say, sort of the biggest unknown, and I'm really, really intrigued to see what Knowles does. And like we said on the pod the other week, I'm in 2 minds about New Zealand. On the one hand, I feel like they're missing too much experience with the likes of Watson, Berger, Ekanasio not being at sort of peak fitness yet. But then on the other hand, I'm like, Lucy, you're an idiot. In Knowles we trust. She's an absolute magician. What are you talking about? And
Absolutely.
I just don't know which way they're going to go.
She is a magician, and I just want to get your guys' thoughts on this, actually, because, you know, you talk about Ekanasio, who's coming back into the fold, who clearly from a experience point of view, we know that she's she plays for the moment, absolutely, but we know that Knowles has set really rigid targets around where players need to be at. We know that that's been a narrative over the last few years, and I guess at this stage where you've lost some really key people, how far do you go to stick to those standards? To those that don't know, she's set very clear fitness goals, for example, as to where players need to be for them to even be a consideration, and I guess at this stage, how far do you go? Do you see it through, even though you may miss out on, you know, some of the best experience, or do you make an exception because you know that that's going to make your squad? I guess let me throw that out there.
Yeah, Lisa, I'm going to nominate you to answer that one first.
I'll nominate, because knowing Knowles quite well, as we did, and getting to observe her up and close when she coached Sunshine Coast Lightning, her expectations around the high performance outcomes for her squad have been pivotal to her success as the coach of Silver Ferns. I don't think she'll go away from it. I really don't. And in fact, she may know that she is going to forego some experience at this tournament to set up the World Cup next year. That's a possibility, because she is missing key players like Berger and Watson. But knowing Knowles and how competitive she is too, it'll be a really hard one for her, but I don't think she'll compromise it. I think she'll still have those high expectations, and she'll be expecting the team to gel together as it is with the players that are ready to perform for her and for New Zealand. So I don't think she's going to go away from it, Camilla, to be honest. I don't, no matter what we think, and we know what Amarilian can do and how incredibly important she was in their 2019 World Cup win, I think she'll be making sure that those fitness standards are maintained.
I agree. I've tried to list again, writing down who would I include. I've still got to about 14, 15, and Ekinazio isn't at the minute in it because of those standards of which you're saying. But if you list those athletes in that shooting end, that goaler end, there's some people that have performed outstanding in ANZ. You look at Dunn, like she's been brilliant. You look at Tiana, who's played out in front of her. You think around. Okay, Grace in terms of has been injured, so she might not meet the fitness standards. But then Selby Rickett had a great season for tactics, and it's just I don't know, it's a tricky one. And Maya Wilson, has definitely stood up at times for stars, and I think you've probably got one or two athletes in each of those core areas that might be wild cards. It's definitely a headache in terms of picking that squad, more so than any other squad.
I think. Totally agree. And what Lisa was saying in terms of nausea standard, I think she's prepping for that World Cup, and so she will take a squad that hits all her targets that she's set, so she doesn't compromise what her philosophies and what they all look up to her and see in her, and she'll work magic with whatever squad she takes, I think. But I don't think that she'll compromise herself for the Commonwealth Games in prep for the Worlds.
Yeah, I mean, I find that really interesting because I don't know, maybe it's just a lack of experience or knowledge on my part, but if you're comparing a Com Games to a World Cup, I personally would have argued that a Com Games is actually almost more important. Maybe that's not the right term, not the right word to say, but more important in terms of it has more than just a netballing audience. You've got non-netballing audiences tuning in terms of what success on that kind of stage does for grassroots, for participation, for funding possibilities. Is that even more significant than the World Cup? I mean, that's probably an actual podcast episode. Maybe I shouldn't have opened up words. I'll move swiftly on to that.
That's definitely has its own podcast, that discussion. But I would say in the netball world and the netball people that I mix with in the netball world, the World Cup is still seen as the event. I'm sorry, but it is.
Yeah.
Because it is netball's own event. Com Games, though, are very, 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 very close behind. It's not like it's not, because as I explained to people in Australia, Commonwealth Games is world class because we're mostly Commonwealth countries that compete in netball. So you're getting a world class event as well. So they are very, very similar, but I think the World Cup takes just slight precedence.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fascinating. And actually, Lise, we'll have you on again the pod to do another episode. We can look at that with you.
I don't know.
Exactly say no at this point.
We'll have to ask.
But Lise, are there any thoughts on New Zealand in particular on the hashtag?
Yeah, there's a few that have come in. So Zara, hi Zara, she said, I do think New Zealand could be a real wild card and bring in some fresh new players that can really shake things up. I like that idea. Kirsty Blackledge said DNT, and I was looking at it for ages thinking DNT, but she means obviously Dame Nolene Taurua. Master plan with trial, able to pick on absolute form and connections, as well as using all data for season and individually. I'd love to see that data, actually. I think that would be incredible. And finally, not to do with New Zealand, but really made me laugh, referencing what we were talking earlier about Aussies coming into our backyard. Amy has said, Aussies can try and sneak in our backyard, but the gate is locked and we have a guard dog come at us.
Well, I think looking at our squad, we absolutely do. Like, you could characterize it like that for sure. I'm very, very conscious of time, so I just want to very, very quickly finish looking at Australia before we wrap up. I mean, who else would I come to first to look at Australia other than, of course, you, Lisa? How do you think we're going to stack up against them in what could potentially be a gold medal matchup?
Look, it really could. I think, you know, looking at the squads at this stage, I think it is the highest probability that it will be an England-Australia gold medal final, which would be tantalising and simply wonderful for everybody. However, you know, as we've just said, Dame Knowles will be trying to do her best to stop that happening, and I think Rob Wright with the team from Jamaica, they'll be also doing their very best as well. But I think it will be those two. Australia has an extremely strong 7 that you saw at the Quad Series with this team that's been selected. Whether they can maintain that sort of form throughout a tournament, not being able to, I guess, be very, very in a bubble. They were very much in a bubble for the Quad Series. They're going to have to get used to, you know, being at a Com Games. They haven't got the experience level that England has. So that is a big, for me, that's a big negative against Australia for this tournament. However, they are fighters. They're hungry. They want it. And it's going to be one of the best finals I reckon we'll ever see.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely spot on. Pam, what are your thoughts on our matchup against Australia?
Yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting. Like the Quad Series just like whet the appetite, didn't it, in terms of how close it was. I think we were all surprised with what Australia came at us with, and I think that's as Lisa said, that 7 is really strong. It was really interesting to see the games at the weekend where Vixens kind of just fell apart in a way and they've got 4 of their team in the squad, and it was said about like the change in venue, all the stuff that was going on with the finals and all that was kind of in their head. So whether those players will be able to kind of keep that psychology in that multi-sport event in the arena where lots of things could change will be really interesting to see. But then it's Australia, isn't it, really? Like, you know, they never go out without a fight. And I think that some of the SSN is by far the best league in the world at the moment, and that week in, week out play that all of them are having is a strength to their bow. So I think it'll be a really, really, really interesting and strong contest. And yet again, I'm going with the Roses.
Yes, of course. I'd have to kick you off the space if you didn't go for the Roses. Luce, before we throw over to Camilla and Anna, have we got anything on the hashtag about Australia?
Yeah, just a couple of thoughts on there. So we've got Faith, who said, Diamonds look the most dangerous to me, but also kind of vulnerable pressure-wise to regain trophies, and cap experience-wise, as you guys mentioned. Don't let them get off to a fast-scoring lead, and we should be all right for the wins. Praying emoji. Love that. And Zara has said, will be interesting to see how fatigue plays into the Diamonds, having a much shorter preparation time for the games, or if it helps carry them over form. Interesting.
Yeah, that is a very interesting factor, is the length of time each of the teams have together. And I think that is an issue for Australia to address. It's a major issue.
Yeah, 100%. Seeing as obviously that's their entire squad, but for all the other nations, England, Jamaica, they've only got a handful of players over there at the moment. So for us in particular, you know, our season finished in early June now, I think it was. So they have had more rest, they have had more prep, and it's only going to be those handful having to sort of go back to back, really. Camilla, what are your thoughts on Australia and us?
I mean, I think it's all been covered in terms of, you know, it's Australia. They turn up when it matters. I think from a centre court point of view, I think they are really strong. I think defensively, you know, the stats speak for themselves in terms of what they've done sun court wise. It's all about the international stage, though. We know that. And for me, I would love, from a spectator point of view, you know, a 2010 replay. Let's have a double. Well, not in terms of the teams involved, but some double extra time. I mean, that would that would be amazing to give the fans worth for their money. But I think I agree. I think it could be a England-Australia final. However, when we look back to the 2019, I think New Zealand came in quiet. Nobody was really talking about New Zealand. And then all of a sudden, Nolene started working her magic, or she had been. And they came out trumped. So it's, and then again, Jamaica, where they're sitting. So at the moment, I think we talked about 2019 being the closest world competition that there's been to date. I think this might also be. I think this is going to top it. I think this is between the top 4 nations, England, Jamaica, Australia, New Zealand. I think it could go either way, but absolutely going for an Australia and England final.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I mean, I'm honestly just so excited. I've got goosebumps just thinking about it. And I think that's just before we end, I want to throw to Anna any final thoughts on Australia or any other teams, how we think we're going to fare.
So I think for me, in terms of Australia versus England's going to be the mid-court matchup. Camilla's just touched upon it. So the wing attack, wing defence position, whoever matches up and can, I suppose, cancel out Watson for them. And then for me, in terms of Metcalf getting the upper hand against someone like Anash Brazil, I was really disappointed they didn't include Jamie Lee Price. I wouldn't have picked Kate Maloney. I would have actually picked Jamie Lee Price. Over her.
I agree with you, Anna.
Yeah.
So in terms of their 12, I think it was probably as predicted, bar that one for me. So I think it's going to be key is that mid-court matchups and where we can really nullify some of the key people like Liz Watson. I think that's where we're gonna win the game.
Yeah, for sure. And even just last week, Jess Anstice proved that can be done. That is something that can be achieved.
Absolutely.
So, guys, honestly, thank you all so much to our incredible speakers to have such esteemed netball powerhouses on space with us. It is just such a privilege, and I'm no doubt that everyone's enjoyed listening to your insights and expertise. Thank you everyone who's tuned in, shared comments and thoughts and questions on the hashtag, on our Instagram stories. The interaction has truly been overwhelming. The netball family is hands down the best sporting family in the world. So thank you all so much for coming, and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you guys. And go Roses.
Go Diamonds.
Lisa. See you guys.
Half of me saying go Jamaica.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
We'll let you off.
Thank you. Good night, guys.
Bye.
Thanks.
Good night, everyone. Bye.